Yuval Noah Harari tries to explain the history of humankind in his book Sapiens, and Brian Greene tries to explain the history of the universe in his book Until the End of Time. This is a modern compulsion that emerged out of the idea that only objective explanations can free us from deceitful myths. It requires one to trace back any event or phenomenon to Archimedean point and forces historians like Harari and scientists like Greene to reduce human beings to mind, brain, or quantum activity. It led them to argue that life is meaningless. Nevertheless, human beings have to find meaning for it in order to survive, since any human endeavor is a utility for them. In a sharp contrast, other philosophers argue that our existence is meaningful and that nothing is given to us. We are in the world and in time, and as such, cannot understand both from a God's point of view. There cannot be objective reality, since everything we face is meaningful for us. That doesn't mean that everything is relative though, since again, nothing is given in the first place. Since we can experience our world in different settings, from different perspectives, and different times, our existence consists of many layers of understandings, rather than merely being the surface level of a foundational layer of reality. Greene tells us in his book that even though the Newtonian physical world is ordered, its inner structure cannot be predictable, since its laws are probable, and as such, physicists must use statistics in order to explain it. But even on the macro level, the physical world as a whole, since the Big Bang, is in a process of disorder. That is, it is dying and free. Greene, shamelessly, with a cosmological existential tone, describes the possibility of universal death. What Greene is implicitly saying is that what we experience, both as scientists and ordinary people, is a possibility. Life in general is a possibility that might be or might not be manifested the same way in the next Big Bang. In the next bang, the universe might be different, since perhaps each bang forms new disorder. This means that human beings might be part of a larger and longer story, one that couldn't have expected their arrival. But Greene does not dare to say it, since even if in his ordinary life he is just a man that is aware of his finitude and as such constantly makes meaningful, professional, and personal choices that give him a purpose. As a scientist, he cannot betray the oath he gave to science. That is, to know the eternal truth, to be a hero that transcends his finitude in the name of the infinite, and to resort to metaphysical realism, which must explain why everything is the way it is, independent of human existence. Like all metaphysicians, he is looking for an origin, an infinite unmoved mover, which created and formed everything there is. Greene holds that truth should provide the most correct explanation for whatever there is, rather than the process of discovering the nature of things to man in different settings, in which a scientific one is just one of them. He admits the reductive approach cannot fully explain human consciousness, and that other settings of inquiry, besides physics, such as philosophy and literature, can help to understand better a situation in the universe. But he just cannot let go, and declare that he must take the reductive approach and explain everything in physical and evolutionary terms. For him, religion, art, and society are practices that are meaningful for us because they increase our chances to survive. Man is determined all the way down, but according to Greene, we can and must choose to find value and joy in art and religion, since it brings us together and connects us to our heritage. Art and religion for him, then, is just a utility, rather than a true way in which we understand and express our being. For Greene and other thinkers who resort to reductive physicalism, the quality of the color red can be explained in terms of physical processes that happen in the world and in one's brain. They want to show that even colors, which were excluded in the past from the inventory of reality by rationalists and empiricists, since they are subjective, could also be objective. But the color red has meaning for me and others, for example solidarity, a meaning that cannot be explained by looking at my brain or the physical world. The color red exists for me not as something to be measured, but as something significant to be remembered, since it motivates and energizes my community and me. Artists discover details about physical reality in a different setting than scientists, but that doesn't mean that their discoveries are not valuable. In fact, they get access to physical reality in a way that the disinterested, detached scientist cannot, and show the effects of different color arrangements when put against different backgrounds. Red, for example, is seen differently on a white or yellow background. Scientists have trouble explaining this phenomena in terms of brain activity, since they have to be experienced in a certain context. Husserl, Ponty, Gibson, and Heidegger show that perception is embodied and contextual rather than computational and representational, and since it has a horizon, it is not of that which is objectively present, but that of which comes into being. Science itself has a background story, and it is situated and fallible, as it is constantly changing its model, and the findings of scientists are constantly being reframed. Moreover, even if they are supposed to be neutral, scientists like Greene and historians like Harari, who use science in order to explain human choices and ways of being, are blind to the fact that they also hold values such as certainty and simplicity, and these values orient their inquiry and let them discover the physical reality the way they do. This means that scientific discoveries are meaningful, like any human endeavor, rather than being the word of God. Despite the fact that Harari calls himself an atheist, like the religious believer, he is in a state of self-denial, since he refuses to accept the frightening thought that human beings' access to reality is unique. He refuses to acknowledge that he is an active speaker of what is real, rather than a victim of a deceiving story plotted by human consciousness. Even Greene, at the end of his book, the same book in which he argues consistently for the power of physical laws that are based on mathematical equations to determine everything that exists, all of a sudden he entertains the idea that they could be taken as true only from the human perspective. That is, they are mind-dependent, and even mathematics itself, which reveals these laws, might be different for other beings. This means that instead of beginning his long journey by examining the power of our cognition and mathematics, he ends it by questioning it. Although he enjoyed philosophizing throughout the book, only at the end of it does he begin to do philosophy.